Hello everyone, I'm majicDave and this is Sapiens. It's been another 2 weeks since the last devlog, and yeah, it's been a little bit slower this time. I've had a couple of quite big tasks to do, and they've required quite a lot of sort of just thinking actually, and designing and sketching and things just to work through a few issues. But yeah, I've done pretty well with it. It's coming along. So yeah, let's see what's new. The first thing that I started working on was the building mechanic. So before you weren't able to place anything on any kind of slope, and that was, it was kind of simple, but it wasn't very realistic. And certainly things like campfires, you really felt like you should be able to place them on a little bit of a slope. And so it had to be different for every object. So I needed to think about how I was going to actually define, how it would test whether a slope was suitable for building or not. So what I've ended up doing is I've now got some boxes that I define in Blender that it uses to test against the geometry in the world. And this is all done both on the main thread and on the server. So it's all kind of moved locations. I used to use the physics engine combined with stuff, the boxes or the areas were defined in Lua and scripts. So it's all changed, and it's all to make my workflow quicker, to make it snappier user interface, so it can very quickly sort of tell you when things are wrong and stuff without having to wait for communication between threads or the server. So one of the benefits to all of this new stuff is that now you can actually place these walls on hills as long as they're in line with the hill. And that's kind of what you would expect, because this is well supported, there's not really any problem here, that's fine. But when you turn around here, there's the left side is digging in too much and the right side is overhanging too much. So it is actually checking that things, whether or not something should be able to be built or not, depending on the object type and its rotation and location in the world. And that works really well. Like, it's going to be particularly good for things like, if I just build up a structure like this. Now, with these thatched roofs, I'm actually going to change the name of this because it can now be placed as a hut, which is pretty cool. I was kind of steering away from that before, but I guess another thing that I've now done is changed it so that it's colliding more accurately with the objects around it. So I can now place a bed inside the hut, or I can place a hut on top of a bed, and it all works. It all tests everything, what should be in the way and needs to be cleared or moved. So this is great. It just means that this is now just sort of a general component that can be used as a roof or as a hut, and I might even split it out into a single section as well, either as an option or as a replacement even, so that you've got a lot of control over where you place things and how you build. So now if I place this here, then that's fine. It'll happily place there. But if I try to place it on this side, this way around, it won't. And the reason is that I've set this up to require supports all the way along the where the wall would be. So on this side it's supported on both sides, whereas on this side there's no support on the left. And this still needs some work. I think that this should probably allow you to build it like this and recognize that it is kind of supported on the two edges, but it sort of shows what it's doing and how it's working at the moment. And yeah, I think it's probably going to need to also give you a bit more context, a little bit more information about why this is red, what's wrong, why is this not able to be built. So yeah, still plenty of work to do, but it's heading in the right direction. So along similar sort of lines, I've now got hammer icons for the building. I've got different icons for different actions. If I keep chopping down this tree, there's still an axe. And as you can see, these are circles and they're green, and this is a yellow warning triangle. So, and it actually tells you at the top now what the problem is. So it says that you need a chopping tool. So I'll get into tools a little bit later. You can now craft a chopping tool, so we'll see that. But this is working across all of these sorts of things. So if you queue up building something that you don't have the resources for, then it will tell you what resources are missing. So the other major thing that I worked on over the past week or so was crafting. Now this was a tricky thing that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I hadn't really decided exactly how it would work. So normally in a game like this, you would have some kind of a workbench that you would use. So you'd maybe or place a workbench that they would then use as the center for operations for crafting. You might have a number of different workbenches for different processes, but generally, yeah, that's your interaction point. Now, I didn't really want to do that with this game. I thought, that's not all that realistic. In general, you don't actually need a bench to craft something, especially like in primitive times. All you need are the resources and perhaps some tools. Later on, you're probably going to need, you're going to need some equipment, maybe a kiln or a furnace or whatever to deal with ores and things. But for now, there's really no need for a workbench. So I started thinking really about what crafting is and how it's different from other processes. I was thinking a lot about how it differs from building, and also how it differs from just placing an object in the world, and how it differs from even processes like if you hunt a chicken and then you go to command to butcher it. Is that a crafting process, or is that a gathering process or a harvesting process? It's not really clear, and so I have to make those decisions. I have to decide how that's all going to work. So in the end, I decided that crafting is really very similar to building. I mean, basically they are crafting a thatch hut here, and so why not just use the same process? So that's what I've gone with. So if I go to craft a hand axe, then I can just place it on the ground, and it's a transparent item, and they go off and they get the resource and they build it. At the moment, all they have to do is bring the resource, place it down, and it'll magically turn into a hand axe. But my plan is that, much like building as well, there will be some process to that. So they'll actually need to find another rock to use as a tool to shape this rock into a hand axe. And yeah, I think it's going to work really well. I think this is a nice way to do it. It might not work for all of the different crafting processes going forward, but I think it's a good starting anyway. Okay, so she's just bringing over this rock that's required to craft this, and it is done. And now she's going to go and store it. And now also this chopping order is now green because we've got the tool that's required. That's actually on the to-do list to make sure that she doesn't carry things off to storage when actually she should do something with it nearby. But yeah, so she's got the axe. You can see the animation is all busted. The rock's in her arm and it's all messed up. But the general kind of overall mechanics are in place now, so that's good. Okay, so I just skipped through the night and let's show you spears. So this was a little bit more complicated again. There's a whole lot of new things going on here because the spear is actually it's a branch turned into a shaft, and it's a rock turned into a spearhead. The branches already could be either pine or birch, and the spearheads could also be different rocks, which I intend to add different kinds of rocks just for a bit of variety. So that means that when when I'm rendering a spear in the world, that I have to actually render it as a composite object of a number of two different submodels, which are kind of derived from what's been crafted earlier. So that was, I was already doing that for these building components, but spears can be carried and, rendered in different ways and thrown and stuff. So, it turned out I hadn't written all the code to deal with that. So, a few more days work there, but that's all done now, so that's good. So anyway, this one's got a triangle because it needs a stone spearhead and a spear shaft, and I can just craft those in here, and it works much the same as everything else. I think it's going to be really nice when they actually do sit down and actually build these tools, because at the moment it's a bit funny that they just plop something there and it's done. But it's a good start. So as you saw, they cleared the ground first. Much like a building of something else, they just need to create a bit of a workspace for themselves. And they'll go and collect the tools that are required as well as the resources that are required, and just sort of put them together. So again, he's just carried that off to a storage area instead of putting it into this, which is obviously a bug that needs to be fixed. But we're just about to have a completed spear. So they can now also hunt with the spears. images, and that is just barely working. I'll attempt to show you how that's working at the moment. Yeah, all kind of needs some work. You know, I just wanted to get the basics working. Now if I'll just wait for that to finish first, and then there we go, she's storing it now. So hopefully if I hit hunt, she'll actually come and bring the spear. So yeah, she's also carrying it oddly. I need to make it so that they'll pick up things and carry them in one hand. It looks like she's just going off to get a rock or something instead of using the spear, which was what I was worried about. Let me just try to get them to actually use the spear. Okay, there we go. I got her to pick it up and come over and head towards this chicken. So yeah, you'll see there are definitely a few issues to go, but oh, there we go. You know, sort of worked. I think the spearhead actually fell off. Yeah. And yeah, it's teleporting back to her each time. Yeah, lots and lots of work to do, but it's nice to sort of see this starting to take shape. And yeah, I'll probably yeah, that's pretty high on the priority list to kind of get this working a lot better. So one other thing that I worked on as well is just the icons for all of the things in here. I just you know, when I was starting to do with spears and things, I realized that I needed a nicer look for that. You know, it was just before I was hard coding a camera position in the Lua scripts, and that was just so hard for me to try to figure out what it was going to look like in the game, and then, you know, I had to adjust it in the script and reload it in the game, and yeah, it was just really hard to get right. Whereas now I'm actually setting up a camera in Blender, so I've got a preview right there in Blender of what it's going to look like, and I can just export that out in the GLTF file, load it up into the model, and use it as the preview icon. So yeah, that's pretty good. So this is the campfire model. Just thought I'd show you how it actually is all looking. As you can see, it's a bit of a mess. It's fine. You know, I can hide these one by one if I want to, and figure out what everything is. But yeah, so there's different geometries that sort of say there's a big bounding sphere around the outside and stuff. But yeah, so that's the camera, and it's showing a preview over there of what the icon's going to look like. And it's just, yeah, super easy for me to just modify the camera in there. And I don't know why I didn't think to do that earlier, but yeah, it's all good. So that's probably about it. There are, yeah, a number of other little bits and pieces that I've been working on, and yeah, they're just probably not worth mentioning at this point. As you can see, there's so much to do. Just every time I do add one more thing or fix one more thing, that just opens up the possibilities of more things to do. But that's the stage that I'm at. That's fine. So aside from all those little things, I really want to get onto pathfinding pretty soon. Quite a few people have noticed that the Sapiens just walking through trees and through structures. I think, especially with stuff like this, you know, I need to figure out how they're going to walk through them and not, you know, through this way or whatever, and how they're going to be able to actually get into that bed. And yeah, I was almost going to avoid this kind of structure just to avoid that problem, but I think I do know how I'm going to do it. I think yeah, I'll be using the Blender files again, placing extra nodes for the pathfinding in there, as well as you know, collision boxes that they have to avoid. And I think it's going to work. I think I can do it, but I do want to get onto that pretty soon. You know, if nothing else, it's more work that's going to have to go into the creation of these assets, and I'd rather, you know, get that sorted sooner rather than later. But you know what normally happens, I'll probably just get distracted with particles or something, and yeah, we'll see. So please, again, wishlist Sapiens on Steam. That will help me out a lot, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Cheers.